Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Alessandro, and in today's video, we are going to be going through what's on my physical TBR and organizing my TBR cart. Now, I feel like this is a trend that's all over BookTube of different BookTube creators buying a TBR cart, assembling it, and then putting their books on it to make it look nice and aesthetically pleasing. In this video, we're going to be doing something a little bit similar, but I already have my TBR cart assembled, so what we're going to do today is talk a little bit about the books that are on my physical TBR, why I want to read them, and give a breakdown of the synopses, and then put the books on the cart to make it look nice and aesthetically pleasing, and add some other things as well just to make it look nice and cute. If you go on to enjoy this video, it would mean a lot to me if you would hit the like button and consider subscribing to my channel for more bookish content coming your way soon. Without further ado though, I'm going to switch angles really quickly so you can see the TBR cart, and then we will get into the physical TBR itself. Okay, so here is the TBR cart we are going to be using. It's just this 3-tiered cart that is in the sky blue color. I got this from Office Depot a couple of years ago for, I think, $40 or $50, I can't exactly remember, but I really like that it is 3-tiered and it's pretty sturdy, and I'm really excited to start putting books on it. Okay, so I know this is not the most flattering angle of all time, and my bookshelves kind of look a little bit decimated because I took the physical TBR off of them right now and they are right in front of me here. And so what I'm thinking I'm going to do is just kind of stack books in some way. I'm not 100% sure, I'm kind of just winging this on the cart on this shelf and then on this second shelf here, and then I have actually a special set of books reserved for this final shelf that you cannot see on the bottom. So I think we actually should start with the books that I'm going to put on the bottom shelf because they won't really be visible in this part of the video. And it's actually a series of books that I have not read yet but really want to, and that is the Trials of Apollo series by Rick Riordan. I'm not sure if I mentioned on this channel yet or not, as I'm a huge Percy Jackson fan but have never read the Trials of Apollo books. I've been spoiled for most of the series and I know most of the major plot points of the books, but nevertheless I still really want to read them at some point. I'm actually thinking of doing a whole series of reading vlogs dedicated to the Trials of Apollo books, but I'm overall really excited to read these. I'm surprised I haven't read these yet, considering I'm such a huge Percy Jackson fan. I've reread Percy Jackson and the Olympians and the Heroes of Olympus series multiple times in the past 5 or 6 years. So I'm surprised I haven't gotten to these yet, but I'm really hoping I get to them this year for sure. So I have the box set of the hardcover books, and I'm going to stick this on the bottom shelf, and then we'll get into the rest of my physical TBR. I also think I'm going to put my most anticipated reads of 2023, or the books that I want to read the most, on the top shelf. And one of those reads is actually the book Beartown by Fredrik Backman. I feel like Fredrik Backman, again, is one of those authors that is all over Book Talk, all over Bookstagram, and all over BookTube in general. He's a Swedish author, and he apparently writes some very profound works of literature and fiction. I would argue that Beartown, A Man Called Ova, and then Anxious People are his most popular books. And this book just seems really interesting to me. It's about a really small town called Beartown, and apparently it is the home of a really proficient junior hockey league team. And these young boys on the team have a shot at making some really big hockey tournament at a national level that would really elevate Beartown, the small town, out of some obscurity. But apparently the book is about much more than that. It's about friendship, about loyalty, and so many more things than just hockey. And this would actually be my first Fredrik Backman book, so I'm really excited to read this. So this is definitely going on the top shelf of the cart. This is already hard. I don't know how people do this. Okay, there we go. That's book 1. Another book that is one of my most anticipated reads of the year, which was not actually on my most anticipated reads of 2023 list, but it's a book that I've come to really want to read after reading this author's other book, and maybe some of you know based on the past few videos I've made, but that book is Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. To say that I'm excited to read this would literally be the understatement of the century. If I wasn't in the middle of the Greenbone Saga trilogy right now, you best believe I'd be picking up Daisy Jones and the Six. I absolutely love Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and I really want to read this book more than I think any other TJR book right now. For those of you who don't know, Daisy Jones and the Six is about a group called Daisy Jones and the Six, and this book is kind of told in an interview style format where the story follows the band from its rise to fame, its dealings with drug abuse, fame, money, groupies, and then ultimately how the band led to be broken up. Taylor Jenkins Reid, I feel, always covers some pretty heavy topics thematically in the books she writes. And I think that really adds to the character of the book and the characters in the books themselves. It makes them feel so multidimensional instead of just flat basic characters. And I think character building is something that TJR excels at. So I'm really excited to read this, and I hear the way to read this is through the audiobook because like I said, it's told interview style. So each member of the band is interviewed throughout the book, and it sounds like for the narrators, there's a different narrator for each person, which sounds really interesting. And I'm just really excited to get into this. I really want to do a reading vlog for this, so stay tuned. Not the most aesthetically pleasing yet, but we will fix it. I think we should just keep going on with the TJR train because there is another book I want to read by her, And that book is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. So I'm a little bit hesitant to read this book, but it is definitely now an anticipated read for me because, like I said, after I finished Malibu Rising, I kind of started to get the TJR hype. And while I originally DNF'd The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo a couple of years ago, I'm determined to give it another chance this year. The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo follows, I guess, Evelyn Hugo. I actually know very little about this and don't remember much of it, but it sounds like we're following Evelyn Hugo again as it's told in a sort of interview-style book, following her rise of fame in Hollywood, chronicled by many, many husbands. And then apparently there's like some heartbreaking twist at the end of this that I don't know anything about. But I'm nevertheless really excited to read this. Switching gears a little bit, I want to talk about now Vicious by V.E. Schwab. I've wanted to read this book for a little while now, and I've actually read about 80 pages into it, but every time I really start to read it and get into it, I end up switching gears with something else. It's not because the book is boring or bad, it's just not always what I was in the mood to read. And I kept checking it out from the library over and over again and just never finished reading it, so I just decided to buy it so I didn't have to keep running back and forth from the library, returning it and getting it. Vicious is the sort of sci-fi fantasy novel about two college roommates named Victor and Eli who are both brilliant, arrogant, and have a shared interest in near-death experiences. So far from what I've read of this book, it's they meet these two guys, Victor and Eli, meet in college and they start to experiment regarding these near-death experiences and what kind of effects they can like produce. But it sounds like there's some sort of falling out where now Victor is determined to like destroy Eli's life for some reason, and that's kind of like the mystery around the book. I don't know if people actually develop superpowers, which is what their research is looking into, is if people can develop supernatural abilities from these near-death experiences, but I'm really curious to find out, and this will definitely be a read I will be getting to soon. Next up is The Stolen Book of Evelyn Aubrey. I think it's kind of funny, I have Evelyn Hugo and Evelyn Aubrey on this list, but The Stolen Book of Evelyn Aubrey is definitely a book that is lesser known, I think, on the booktube space. It is a dual POV, I would say, historical thriller. It's a dual timeline where we follow the author Evelyn Aubrey in 1890s England, where she's a proficient author, but she's married to someone who is also an author, but he's a very frustrated author and can't get his own works published. So he ends up stealing one of Evelyn Aubrey's manuscripts and publishing it as his own. Flash forward to, I think, like 130 or so years in the future. We are now in like the 21st century, and this woman finds out that Evelyn Aubrey was actually her great-great-grandmother, and she wants to uncover the truth behind her mysterious disappearance. So it does sound like Evelyn Aubrey goes missing after the events transpire with her husband, and it overall sounds like a really intriguing read. I just haven't been in the mood to read this sort of historical thriller right now, but I definitely want to get to it possibly later this year. Now, this next book I'm incredibly nervous to read because I just have seen reels and TikToks of people just absolutely sobbing their eyes out reading this book. But I've also heard nothing but positive things about it at the same time, and that is Ocean Vuong's On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous. This is a book about a son in his 20s written to his mother who cannot read, and apparently it's sad, but it's inspiring, and it has critiques on race, masculinity, and all sorts of things like that. It sounds really heartfelt, and I've heard that Ocean Vuong's writing is incredibly lyrical and beautiful. I don't typically read books like this. I tend to stay in my genres of comfort, but I think this would be a really enlightening read for me. I've never read anything by Ocean Vuong, and I think this is a really good place to start. Another book that I'm anticipating reading this year, but I'm not 100% sure when I'll get around to it, is called Self-Made Boys. This book, I hear, is a really interesting Great Gatsby retelling, and that's basically all I know about it. I read The Great Gatsby for the first time in my third year of high school and really loved it, so I'm really curious to see what goes on in this book. I hear it's a really interesting retelling with some trans representation, which I think is really important. And that's basically all I know about this book, and I really want to read it this year. Next up, we have Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmis, which is another very popular book. It was Barnes & Noble's Book of the Year in 2022, and I did just decide to pick up a copy for myself recently. I'm really excited to read this because I hear this has a really excellent commentary on sexism, being a single mother, just the experience of being a woman in the 40s and 50s. And it's something, again, that I don't typically read about, and I really want to read about it and educate myself more on it. I hope to actually buddy read this with one of my friends, and I'm really looking forward to it. The final book on this list is called Last Night at the Telegraph Club by Melinda Lowe, which is a YA sapphic romance. I really want to read this book, and I've actually read about 100 pages into it, and again, I'm just having trouble getting to the end. That seems to be a theme for me in the past year. I'm just having trouble finishing a lot of books. But basically, this book follows our main character, Lily, who is a closeted lesbian during the 1950s. She lives in Chinatown in San Francisco, and it's not really a safe place to be out and proud, especially with the threat of communism looming. So she's very careful to hide her true identity and not really expose herself in any way. But it sounds like in this book, she meets another girl who's like her, and they begin a romance in secret. So I really want to get to this because I really love reading this kind of story, even though it is YA, and you guys know I'm not the biggest YA reader. But I hope I can finish this. Like I said, I've gotten 100 pages into this and just can't get through it at the moment, but I really want to read it before the end of this year. So I know it's kind of crooked, but that's what we're going to roll with right now for the top shelf of the cart. So there are a few more books I want to talk about that I'm going to put on the second shelf right here. I think on the second shelf, I'm going to put some books that are not as high on my list as the books on the first shelf. And these books, I think, are also going to be my library books. Like, I'm going to keep my library books here that I'm not, like, dying to read at this second. Just so I have a place to put them, because I feel like I have library books all over the apartment right now, and it's not in any sort of cohesive order. So I'm not going to talk about these books in depth very much, but I'm just going to kind of put them here and organize them. The first book is a mystery thriller called The Book of Cold Cases by Simone St. James. I'm not really in my mystery thriller era right now, but I really want to read this as I really enjoy cold case thrillers. The next book I got from the library recently is called The Gilded Wolves by Roshani Chakshi. I hear this book is kind of like a very similar vibe to the book Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. It's like a heist novel set in 1890s France with like a gang of misfits trying to come together to achieve some goal. I love a good heist novel too. Again, this is YA and I just don't know how I feel about it, but I'm gonna give it a try nonetheless. Next up, we have Delilah Green Doesn't Care by Ashley Herring Blake, which is a sapphic romance that is very, very popular. Mel from Mel Reads really liked this book, so I had to get it from the library immediately. I'm definitely gonna read this soon because I am in a romance mood right now, but yeah. And last but not least, the book that is probably one of my favorite books of the entire year. I haven't even finished the second book yet, but I had to get this book from the library just so when I finish the second book, I have it. And again, if you've been paying attention to my channel at all in the past month, you would know that I'm reading the Greenbone Saga. So the last book on this list is going to be Jade Legacy by Fonda Lee. I have no idea what's going to go down in this book. I haven't finished Jade War yet, which is book number 2 in this series. So Jade Legacy is number 3 and the final book in this series. And I'm absolutely terrified to read this because I've heard this book is just full of emotional damage and trauma and will probably put me in the worst book hangover of my entire life, but I'm excited to read it nonetheless. So I just took a few more minutes to add some extra little decorations, let's say, to the TBR cart as it was looking a little bit empty. So as you can see, I added a Vileplume Poke Plush to the top shelf, a cute little Narwhal to the second shelf, and my Pusheen the cat on the third shelf. I think this turned out really nice, and it definitely gives off my vibe a little bit, and yeah, I'm really happy and I'm really excited to read all these books. But there you have it, guys. So that is what is on my physical TBR and organizing my TBR card. This is actually a really fun video to do, and I think it looks really nice right here. Of course, as you can see, it is blocking the exit of my bedroom, so I'm gonna have to fix this in a little bit. Thank you guys again so much for checking out the video. It means a lot to me every time I read a comment or get a like on a video, so thank you guys very much for your support. I hope to be bringing you more bookish content very soon, and again, if you went on to enjoy this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel. Also, feel free to leave a comment about what's on your physical TBR or the most anticipated read you have next. Without anything else though, I think I will just get out of here. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. My name is Alessandro, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!